Thank you for being here and welcome to the Privacy Effort. I'm Frank. Today, we're diving deep into the hidden reality of surveillance. I'm not talking about spy movies with trench coats and fedoras. I'm talking about the constant, invisible monitoring woven into our daily digital lives, maybe even into the phone you're holding right now. And this isn't theoretical. The truth is, this whole digital surveillance ecosystem isn't just huge, it's actually technically fragile in places. Your most confidential personal information is constantly at risk. And often, it's not because of some super genius hacker, but because of massive, systemic infrastructure failures. Basic mistakes on the part of the platforms you trust. In the next few minutes, my mission is simple: to give you the precise blueprint of how your most confidential data is at risk, and crucially, how you can start implementing digital self-defense. We will start with the shocking 70-terabyte lesson, the Parler data leak, to expose the technical fragility of these systems. Then we will analyze the profit motive that drives this excessive data collection. Finally, I will distill all of this down into 3 core actionable rules for mitigation, giving you the power to fundamentally change your risk profile and protect yourself from the metadata mosaic. At first, I want to share with you a true story of myself. I still remember the morning I woke up and saw the headlines, 70 terabytes of Parler user data scraped. At first, it felt distant, just another tech scandal, until I realized I was one of those users. I had joined Parler back in 2020, mostly out of curiosity. It seemed like a place for free speech, somewhere outside the noise of other platforms. I didn't post much, maybe a few short comments, a couple of photos from rallies, nothing private, or so I thought. But when the news broke that hackers had downloaded everything, not just posts, but metadata, deleted files, even IDs people uploaded for verification, I froze. Because metadata meant location. And those pictures? They had GPS coordinates from my backyard, my street, even my kid's school event. I hadn't realized how much invisible data I was leaking. Every photo, every video quietly timestamped and geotagged, stored on Parler servers with no protection. And it wasn't even an illegal hack. It was all done through public APIs, open doors Parler never locked. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just a user. I was a data source, one with a permanent, traceable fingerprint. Even after deleting my posts, they stayed on Parler servers, waiting to be scraped by anyone who knew where to look. The fallout was brutal. Some people were identified through their posts and locations. The data was uploaded to GitHub for the world to browse. And while some celebrated it as a win for transparency, others, including me, saw it for what it was: a warning.
If this can happen to Parler, it can happen anywhere. We like to believe our favorite apps, social, fitness, photo storage, are safe. But behind the friendly interface, they rely on APIs that are often left wide open or poorly secured. One weak point: missing authentication, no rate limiting or predictable IDs, and suddenly 70 terabytes of your life can be downloaded overnight. This isn't just about politics or one platform's failure. It's about how fragile digital privacy has become, how our photos, habits, and movements can become evidence, products, or leverage without our consent.
The profound takeaway here is just how critical these infrastructure failures are. They put you at risk every single time you use an app that handles sensitive location or identity information. And when companies claim they protect our privacy, but their actual security practices leave the front door wide open, it begs the question: why? Why do they tolerate this level of reckless exposure? The Parler failure showed us the technical vulnerability, the how. But that vulnerability is often just a symptom of something much bigger,
a profit motive fueled by excessive, often indiscriminate data collection, which leads us perfectly into Act 1, the illusion of choice and the engagement traps.
Act 1, the illusion of choice and the engagement traps. This is about understanding the why behind the how of modern digital platforms. The central issue is the core business model for so many of these platforms. The product isn't the app itself. The product is you, your data, your attention. So what does that mean in practice? It means companies are primarily harvesting data for 3 profit drivers. These 3 profit drivers are what fuel the data harvesting practices we see today. Let's break down what these profit drivers mean in practice for you as a user. First, they design hyper-effective targeted advertising, making sure you see ads most relevant to your interests. Second, they perfect algorithmic recommendation systems to keep you hooked and engaged for longer. And third, they sell or license your data to third parties, like data brokers. Because there aren't strong legal safeguards, companies are relentlessly incentivized to develop more invasive collection methods. This directly pits their desire for maximum monetization against your fundamental right to privacy. It feels like an unfair fight, and the user seems to be losing. And the irony is, we kind of know it. Survey data shows that 73% of US adults feel they have little to no control over what companies do with their data. Compounding that, 2/3 admit they just don't understand what companies are actually doing with their data. Yet we keep clicking accept. Why? It's the engagement machine. It's powerful. These platforms aren't designed to be neutral tools. They are actively engineered to maximize user engagement, which often translates to encouraging excessive use and what academics call behavioral dysregulation. It's literally exploiting how our brains are wired. Think about the specific features designed to hook you. The rapid-fire push notifications buzzing in your pocket, the auto-playing videos that pull you right back in, the infinite scroll that eliminates natural stopping points, and of course, the likes and reactions that quantify your social worth and trigger those little dopamine feedback loops. These aren't accidents. They are highly sophisticated tools designed for engagement maximization, and they have a real human cost. Our studying materials indicate that nearly 1/3 of all social media use might be directly attributable to self-control challenges. Challenges that are amplified by the habit-forming designs deliberately engineered into the platforms. This has a real human cost, especially for younger users, directly affecting their mental health and development. This brings us to the data privacy paradox. People express deep concern about their privacy, but they feel compelled, almost forced, to use the services anyway. Often you don't have a real choice. If you need a certain service for your job, or just to stay connected with family, you have to surrender to the data practices of the dominant companies. This removes any incentive for those companies to compete by offering better privacy protections. If we have nowhere else to go, why would they improve? Okay, so we understand the broken incentives, the profit motive, the psychological manipulation. Now let's get really specific. How does this tracking actually work on a technical level? Let's dive into Act 2. To truly protect yourself, you need to understand the 4 critical weaknesses that allowed 70 terabytes of data to be scraped so easily from Parler. This is the blueprint for system failure. First, missing authentication on public APIs. An API is how different software bits talk to each other. If an API is public but carries sensitive information, it must require user verification. Parler either bypassed or ignored this. Without it, anyone with a simple script can access data that should only be for the actual user. Second, they used sequential identifiers. Imagine a library where every file is numbered sequentially. 1, 2, 3. If you find item number 1, you know exactly where to find all the others. This makes automated scraping trivially easy. If they had used long, random strings of characters, a scraper would have to guess every single address, making it almost impossible. Third, a lack of restrictions and monitoring on API calls. This is known as API rate limiting. A secure system has to limit the number of times a single user can make requests in a certain time frame, like a speed limit for data. Parler failed spectacularly at this, allowing the hacktivists to execute millions of rapid-fire requests without interruption. And the fourth failure was excessive data exposure in the form of content metadata. Even for public posts, the API should only expose the bare minimum information required for the app to function. Parler gave out way more, including those precise geographical coordinates, even for posts users thought they had securely deleted. This brings us to the metadata mosaic. Metadata is so often incorrectly dismissed as harmless. People think, oh, it's not the content of my call or my email. But that's a dangerous assumption. A former high-ranking CIA official is even quoted as saying there's not a sharp difference between metadata and content, it's more of a continuum. This is because of what's known as the mosaic theory. Think about tiny tiles. Individually, they don't reveal much. But when you collect enough of these seemingly non-sensitive bits of information, location pings, call times, websites visited, and combine them over time, you build a picture. A mosaic that reveals the most intimate details of your life. Let me give you a concrete example. Imagine you start searching online for information about a specific, sensitive medical condition. The search terms are content, but the metadata is everything else. Your phone records your location. Now let's combine things. Location data shows you visited a specialist medical clinic 3 times last month. Purchase metadata from a pharmacy app shows you bought a specific prescription drug. Communication metadata shows you called that specialist's office at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. None of those individual data points explicitly state your medical issue. But the mosaic, the pattern of timing, location, and calls, paints an incredibly intimate and accurate picture of your private health status, all without reading a single message. That is genuinely chilling. And the worst part is, these companies don't even have to collect all those tiles themselves. There's a whole ecosystem of third parties and data brokers. Social media companies don't just rely on what you tell them. They create inferred data about you and purchase information from others, even about people who have never signed up for their service. How does this information flow? Through the invisible pipeline of advertising technology, ad tech. Things like tracking pixels embedded in websites. When you visit a site with one of these pixels, detailed information about your activity, what you looked at, what you put in your cart, gets immediately relayed back to the social media company or ad network. That's how they know you looked at those shoes on that other website. This precision can lead to what sources call harmful targeting, causing real emotional distress and invasion of privacy. For instance, an ad that effectively assumes someone's sexual orientation before they've publicly disclosed it. Or a retailer targeting a user with ads for baby products before they've had a chance to share the news of a pregnancy with their own family. It's a profound violation of privacy, and it happens because the system is designed to infer and target based on incredibly granular behavioral data. Now let's move from the software layer down to the hardware network. One of the most physically intrusive types of surveillance tech is the cell site simulator, also known by the brand name Stingray, or the generic term IMSI catcher. These devices pretend to be a legitimate cell phone tower. They broadcast a stronger signal than the real towers nearby, tricking your phone into connecting to them. When it connects, the trap springs. The device indiscriminately forces all mobile phones within its range to transmit 2 unique identifiers, your IMSI, which identifies your SIM card, and your IMEI, which identifies your physical phone. By collecting both, the operator immediately knows who is in the area, what device they're using, and their precise location. But what makes these devices truly dangerous is their ability to perform a protocol downgrade attack. The fake tower can force your phone to connect using a much older, less secure 2G network. Why? Because the encryption on those 2G standards is notoriously weak and easily broken. Forcing your phone onto 2G opens the door for easier communications interception and eavesdropping. Even without a Stingray, your cell provider can track you with high precision using standard cell tower triangulation, sometimes down to a 2-meter error margin. That basically pinpoints you. This level of inescapable accuracy, combined with API flaws and the metadata mosaic, is why we absolutely must move into Act 3. Alright, so with everything we've been talking about, what are the actual rules for digital self-defense? Like, what can regular people actually do? I think the main idea might sound a bit backwards at first. When you're up against super high-tech threats, the best move is often to go low-tech, or even no tech at all. That's really the first rule. Limit your electronic presence. You kind of have to let this sink in. Your phone isn't just a phone. It's a tracking device. It can be a listening device too. So if you're doing something sensitive, say investigative work, activism, or even private business stuff, the safest thing is honestly just don't bring your phone. Leave it somewhere else. Now, if you have to take it for safety reasons, that's fine, but don't assume turning it off makes you invisible. It's better than nothing, but depending on who or what you're worried about, it's not a full guarantee. The only way to be totally sure your phone's not listening or transmitting is to take the battery out. And yeah, that's not even possible on most phones anymore. Which kind of proves the point. The best option is still to leave it behind. And when it comes to communication, face-to-face is always safest for sensitive stuff. But keep physical security in mind too. Don't have private talks in places that could easily be bugged, like your car, your living room, or even a cafe with cameras everywhere. If you can, meet somewhere open and quiet. That same idea applies to your computer files. If something's sensitive, encrypt it. Use solid, proven tools like PGP or GPG. They've been around forever, and they work. And one more thing, deleting a file doesn't actually delete it. It just hides it. So if you really need something gone, use proper software that wipes the file completely by overwriting the data multiple times. So yeah, that's rule 1. Limit your electronic presence. Keep it small, keep it clean, and don't rely on your gadgets to keep your secrets. That's rule 1 for digital self-defense. Rule number 2 focuses on your data over time. Alright, so rule number 2 is all about your data. Not just what you share, but what you keep over time. Basically, control what you store and how you delete it. And here's where a lot of people get tripped up. Hitting delete doesn't actually delete anything. I know it feels like it should, but it doesn't. All your computer really does is mark those files you deleted and say, hey, these can be written over. But the actual content of the files, it just sits there quietly, waiting until something else comes along to replace it. That might take days, weeks, sometimes even longer. So if you really need a file gone truly unrecoverable, you need to use specialized software, secure wiping tools, forensic scrubbers, things like that. They overwrite the data multiple times. Alright, but what about the files we do have to keep, the sensitive ones? Yeah, that's where encryption comes in. And honestly, it's not optional. If it's important, files on your laptop, backups, external drives, it all needs to be encrypted. Use the solid, trusted tools, stuff like PGP or GPG. That stands for Pretty Good Privacy and GNU Privacy Guard. They've been around forever and are super reliable. Encrypt the stuff that matters, and when you delete something, make sure it's actually gone. Wiped properly, not just sitting in your trash folder waiting to be dug up. Okay, so what else falls under rule number 2? Passwords. Yeah, still super important. I know, it sounds basic, but seriously, strong passwords are your first line of defense. Think long, like over 16 characters, and mix it up with caps, lowercase, numbers, symbols, all that good stuff. And for the love of everything, don't reuse them. One weak or repeated password is basically an open door for anyone trying to get in. So yeah, limit your presence, control your data. Which brings us to the third rule. This one's all about awareness, not just online, but in real life too. It's what they call operational security, or just OPSEC, if you want to sound cool about it. Rule 3, maintain operational security. This starts with information control, and who knows what. What you need to do is follow the classic need-to-know only rule. If someone isn't directly involved in that piece of information or plan, they don't need to know the details. Spreading information unnecessarily just increases risk, because the more people who know something, the more chances there are for it to slip out, even by accident. You know that saying, loose lips sink ships? Yeah, that still totally applies, even online. And physically, what about being aware of actual physical surveillance? Physical OPSEC involves cultivating awareness. Learn the signs. A vehicle parked in the same spot for days, maybe with occupants who avoid eye contact. That could be a surveillance post. Also, think about using the environment. Moving through what security pros call channelized terrain, like a narrow bridge, an underpass, a specific choke point, forces anyone following you to commit, making them easier to spot. It helps you detect if you're being tailed. These personal steps are vital, clearly. But this isn't just about individual risk, is it? There's a bigger picture, a community impact from all this surveillance. That's a crucial angle. When tools like those IMSA catchers are used broadly, just sweeping up data from everyone in an area during a protest, regardless of suspicion, or when biased facial recognition technology, FRT, is deployed, it directly interferes with fundamental rights. We're talking about the right to peaceful assembly, the right to freedom of expression. These technologies can actively undermine those core democratic principles. And you mentioned biased FRT. The accuracy problems are pretty serious, especially for certain groups. They are deeply concerning. Research consistently shows facial recognition tech has significantly higher error rates, false positives for certain demographics compared to, say, middle-aged white men. We see higher false positive rates for Black individuals, people of East Asian descent, women, and older adults. This isn't just an abstract problem. It leads directly to wrongful scrutiny, potential discrimination by authorities, and even, terrifyingly, wrongful arrests based on flawed tech identifying the wrong person. So what's the cumulative effect of all this? The indiscriminate data sweeps, the biased tech, the general feeling of being watched. It creates what sociologists and legal scholars call a chilling effect. It's when people, journalists protecting sources, activists organizing, even just regular citizens wanting to voice dissent, start to self-censor. They hesitate. They refrain from exercising their rights because they fear being constantly monitored, tracked, or misidentified. And that chilling effect, it weakens democracy. It stifles debate, erodes trust, and ultimately makes society less free and less safe for everyone.
Okay, so we've journeyed through the tech, the psychology, the risks, and the personal defenses. You, my friends, should now have a much clearer picture. You understand that non-content isn't private, that metadata tells a story, and that while self-defense is critical, it's maybe not enough on its own.
These individual strategies are essential, but we also have to recognize that this surveillance ecosystem isn't neutral. It carries and amplifies existing societal biases. We see this most clearly with the rapid expansion of facial recognition technology, FRT. Testing by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, provides shocking clarity. Their tests consistently show that many FRT systems have substantially higher false positive rates for Black people and people of East Asian descent, anywhere from 10 to 100 times more likely to be misidentified than middle-aged white men. The inaccuracies also apply to women and the elderly. Deploying these deeply flawed systems at scale can lead to wrongful investigations and detentions, and can create barriers to essential services, like being locked out of your own apartment building if it uses a biased FRT system for access. Another vulnerable group is teenagers. In the US, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, COPPA, offers some protection for kids under 13. But the moment a child turns 13, those protections vanish. They are treated as adult users from a data collection perspective, even though research shows the same harms. Addictive design, psychological manipulation, pervasive data harvesting can affect them just as much, if not more. Yet, companies generally lump them in with adults because they are a highly valuable market to monetize. So where does this leave us? Hopefully, you've moved from being a passive consumer of technology to a more informed, proactive digital citizen. Someone who understands the true weight of the conclusion we keep coming back to. The metadata is the message. The mosaic theory isn't academic. It's the real-world playbook used every day by intelligence agencies, data brokers, and advertising networks. They piece together seemingly innocuous bits of data to reveal the most intimate details of your life. This understanding highlights just how outdated our legal framework is, particularly the third-party doctrine. This is the idea that if you give information to a third party, like your phone company, you lose your expectation of privacy in it. This doctrine was established long before the internet and smartphones, a time when mass, unavoidable data collection wasn't our reality. It no longer maps to the world we live in. So what does this all mean moving forward? It means individual action, digital hygiene, is necessary but insufficient. Real lasting change has to tackle the systems, especially the business models driving this. We need to advocate for systemic reforms. Top of the list, comprehensive federal privacy legislation in the US. What kind of specific protection should people be asking for in that kind of legislation? Okay, 3 key things at a minimum. First, a clear, enforceable right for you to access all the data collected from or about you, and critically, the right to delete it. Second, mandatory data minimization. Companies should be legally required to only collect the data absolutely necessary for the specific service they're providing you, not just hoarding everything possible. And third, clear, strict rules on how long they can keep your data retention limits and requirements for secure deletion. No more keeping sensitive info indefinitely for vague future business purposes. While we advocate for legal reform and greater transparency, there is an immediate, practical call to action for you. Start practicing data minimization today, right now. How to practice data minimization. Go through every single application on your phone, your computer settings, and your browser extensions. Review everything and proactively choose to withhold data. Turn off location access, contact list access, microphone access, and background app refresh by default. Only grant a permission if it is strictly and demonstrably necessary for the core service you actually requested. Be skeptical, be stingy with your data. Make them justify every single permission. Alternative interfaces and data minimization. Where possible, look for alternative interfaces for social media that might offer a chronological feed, instead of forcing you into the algorithmically curated engagement machine. Minimizing your time within that environment and minimizing the data you allow that machine to consume about you. That is the most crucial, immediate step you can take towards real digital self-defense. Conclusion. And that small effort, multiplied across many users, starts to send a signal. It starts to protect the integrity of the data ecosystem, hopefully for everyone.
I'm going to leave you, my friends, with a final thought to chew on. We know social media thrives on user engagement, and often what drives engagement today is really rich media. High-quality photos, compelling videos, often tagged with locations shared instantly. But think about this tension. The very act of creating and sharing that engaging, high-def, location-rich content dramatically increases the amount of privacy-invasive metadata, geotags, timestamps, device info that these platforms collect and profit from. So how does our own desire, maybe even our need to create and consume compelling digital content, constantly work against the very privacy protections we know we need for a healthy, free society? Where's the balance? Something to think about. Go forward, explore that tension, stay informed, stay critical, and practice defending your digital self. You're definitely better equipped now to understand the landscape. That wraps up today's discussion. Thanks for watching and tuning in. If you're curious to dive deeper into this topic, make sure to visit our website. The link is in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so you never miss an update. See you next time.